Hello and welcome back to my channel. As the title of the video suggests, I'm going to be installing Arch Linux today. This is going to be an update to my older installation guide because the process has changed a little bit, and I know some people might get a little lost because they follow the videos. So I'm going to do a new one. It's an updated one. First off, a couple of things that I should mention off the bat. This installation process is geared towards a system that is UEFI based. So if you have a BIOS based system, this installation process is not for your machine. Right now I have the Arch. I assume that you've downloaded the ISO and created a bootable USB stick, and I've done that. I have the laptop that's sitting next to me. It's booted into the live ISO. What you're seeing here on the terminal is I've used SSH to remote into the laptop that's sitting next to me into the live ISO. And the reason I did that is because this is really the only way to get the installation process recorded for a UEFI system. I'm sure some people get it to work in VirtualBox. I was not that lucky, so this is my solution. The last thing I should get out of the way is that during this installation process it will wipe the entire drive, the entire disk on the system that I'm installing Arch to. So just keep that in mind, that this installation assumes that Arch Linux is the only operating system you want on your computer. And so it will wipe your drive. So make sure that you're okay with that before you start this installation process. So anyway, now that we got those things out of the way, the first things that we want to do is to make sure that we've booted it into UEFI. So I'm going to type in the command EFI var, EFI var, and give it the option L. Now if this command outputs anything at all, you're booted into UEFI. So since it gave me that list of things, that means that I'm in EFI, so we booted it correctly. The next thing we want to do is check for the available disks and then partition them correctly. For that, I'm going to type in lsblk to get a list of available drives. As you can tell, I have 2 drives on the system, 2 disks. One of them is SDA. This is the internal hard drive. This is the drive that we're going to be installing Arch to. The other one is SDB. That's the USB drive that has the Arch ISO that we're booted from right now. So we're not going to touch that one. Now for you, this might be different. Might be a different drive letter or drive name. Best thing I could say is make sure you get the right one. Make sure you know what you're doing here. But for me, SDA is the drive that we're going to be installing Arch to here. The first thing we're going to do with it is we're going to make sure we get a fresh drive. We're going to make sure to wipe everything from it. So this step will wipe the disk completely clean. And the way we do that is with gdisk. So we type in gdisk /dev/SDA, and you would replace this drive, this letter, with whichever drive you selected. For me, that's SDA, so we're just going to do that. We're going to hit X for expert mode, and we're going to type Z for zap, type Y, and Y. And now the whole drive is completely completely wiped. I'm just going to clear it to make some room here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to partition the disk. So we're going to type cg disk, and once again for me it's /dev/sda. I'm going to go into here, press any key to continue, so we're going to hit any key. So here's where you're going to decide how to partition your drive. I'm doing this a little bit differently because I don't use a swap partition anymore. And the reason that I don't use a swap partition anymore is because I've switched to swap files. I just find them to be easier to work with because I can delete them. I can delete them and create them as needed. And so the first thing we want to do is create a boot partition, and for that you're gonna see you can hit new, like I just did, and you're gonna see it's gonna ask you for the first sector. We're gonna leave that blank. Just hit enter. It's gonna ask for size and sectors, or km, cheap, tp. Now those are measured in kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte, terabyte, petabyte. I'm gonna just give it 1G for 1 gigabyte, and I'm going to hit enter. Now when it asks you for the hex code, you're going to want to give it EF00. That's the hex code that's going to tell it that this is an EFI partition. This is a boot partition. And I'm going to name it boot. Simple enough, right? So now we have 1 gigabyte. Sorry about that. We have 1 gigabyte for a boot partition. So the next partition we're going to make is our root partition. And this is where some people might have disagreements on this. You can separate your root and your home partitions. But for simplicity's sake in this video, I'm just going to make root and home in the same partition. A lot of what I'm doing is just going to be like simple, basic, like the basics. Like if you want to do anything complicated, I suggest reading the Arch Wiki, or looking up tutorials on how to do it. So I'm just going to hit new. I'm going to leave that blank, and they can just have the rest of the disk, so I'm going to leave that blank. The default hex code is 8300. That's for a Linux file system, and that's fine, so I'm just going to leave that as a default too. I'm going to name this partition root. So we got our partitions the way we want it, but so we want to go over here and hit write. It's going to ask you if you want to write the partitions to disk. I want to type in yes. And now it's written to disk. So I'm going to go over here to quit. I'm going to quit out of there. However, that's not enough. We still have to make the file systems on our partitions. The first one we have to do is, and the way we do it is we type in mkfs dot, and you type in dot the file system that you want. Now for the boot partition, we want it to be FAT32. And so we're going to type in mkfs.vfat.vfat and followed by the path to the partition of our boot partition. For me, that's /dev/sta1. And the way you can find that out is just type in lsblk and it'll list you the partitions again. So like we showed right there, we're going to just type in mkfs.vfat dev sta1, and we're going to hit enter. So now it made the file system. And for the home partition or the root partition, we're going to make it ext4. So let's do it the same way. We type in mkfs .ext4 for this one instead, because the file system is ext4. And for me it's /dev/sda2. And we hit enter. Type in Y if it asks you for that. And this is a terabyte drive. It could take a minute. It could take a while. Okay, and we're done with that. Now, if you had a swap partition, which I don't, you would want to type in mk swap. The reason I'm not doing any of this right yet is because I'm just going to end up making a swap file later on in the installation process, and maybe I'll talk about that in a future video as to why I switched. But anyway, onto the tutorial. Now we have to mount our drives correctly. So we're going to type in mount /dev/sda2 for me. Make sure this is your root partition, and I'm going to put that in /mnt. Now we have to make a couple of directories, and then we're going to mount those directories. So now the directories we're going to create, and we're going to do that by typing in mkdir /mnt/boot, and the other directory we want to create is mnt/home. Now this command is going to make both of these directories one command. Some people will do that two separate commands, mkdir boot and then mkdir home, two separate commands, but I like to do it in one just to get it out of the way. And we can check to make sure that these drives, these directories were created. And we do that by typing in ls/mnt to get a list of directories, and they are there. So got it right. So we're going to type in mount /dev/sda1 for me, and this is going to be mounted to mnt boot. And the second one we're going to mount is /dev/sda2 /mnt home. And there we go. We got our disks mounted, and we can check that through lsblk again, and we could get them all mounted correctly. So I'm just going to hit clear. And now we're going to choose our mirror list. And what a mirror is basically the way that Linux handles software, package, or the installation and management of applications is very different from the way Windows handles it. You're probably used to, if you're looking for a specific application, you either go to CNET or the official site, download the executable, and then install it. Well, Linux is a little bit different. In Linux we have what's called repositories, and these repositories have all of the applications, or as Linux likes to call them, packages, and you just install them all from these repositories. And we could do that either from the command line with the package manager, or with some distributions have graphical package managers like software centers. However, what a mirror is it's a mirror of a server that stores these packages, and whenever your computer is going to update, or if it's going to install a piece of software, it's going to search these servers for that piece of software. And if it's searching for in a server I don't know, in Australia and you're living in New York, it's gonna take a few minutes. It's gonna take its time. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna pick the closest ones so that you're not sitting there for days on end trying to update your system. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna automate this. But for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show you what's actually in this file, and this is cat is the catalog command, and so it's good. Basically, just shows the contents of a file and input the directory that I want it. I'm gonna basically show the contents of this file here, the mirror list. And as you can tell, it has a list of HTTP, FTP servers for different countries. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the top six more reliable ones, and we're going to automate this. And the way we're going to do that is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in cp for copy, etc pacman.d mirror list. We're going to copy that to etc pacman.d, and we're going to copy that to mirror list.backup. And so now what we're going to do is we have to install a package, and the way we do that, the package manager in Arch is called Pacman. And what we're going to do now is just hit Pacman, capital S, lowercase y. And what that's going to do is, if you're familiar with Ubuntu or Debian, this is the equivalent of apt update. So all it's doing is checking the repositories and refreshing its database of what's available. It might take its time the first time you do this, because keep in mind you don't have your mirror selected, and it might be using one in Timbuktu somewhere. But this will get better after we run this. Okay, so now we're going to actually install a package, and this package is called pacman.contrib. So you want to type in pacman dash uppercase S, capital S, pacman slash contrib. And the reason we're going to install this is because a certain package or certain application comes with it, and the name of and the command that we're going to run now is rank mirrors. So rank mirrors, what that's going to do is it's going to find it's going to ping each server. It's going to ping each mirror, and it's going to automatically select the 6 fastest ones, the 6 that are the fastest to respond, and it's going to automatically select those for us, and it's going to put them in to our mirror list. And now this could take a while. I am actually going to time this. We hit enter. And this could take a while, so I'm just going to pause the recording here and come back when it's done. And we're back. As you can tell, the rank mirrors has finished this command. It took about 6.5 minutes maybe. So do bear in mind that could take a while. But anyway, we got our mirrors selected, and it was completely automated. So let's check out the file, make sure we got it. So as you can tell, it commented. It's got all of the countries are commented out. It's going to ignore those, and we got the top 6 down here. It selected it automatically, so we didn't have to figure any of that out on our own. Easy peasy, right? So anyway, moving on. This is the part of the installation process that changed the most. Normally, this is the stage where we'd install the base system to the drive, and we're still going to do that. Okay, we do that by typing in pacstrap tac/i /mnt. When we type in base devel will give us some extra tools. Some would argue are pretty basic. However, we're going to add a few extra things to this here, because the Arch Linux team has recently taken some things out of the base group, if that makes any sense. One of those things that they took out of it is the kernel. And so I'm just going to type in Linux after that. That'll get us a kernel. You want to make sure to type in Linux firmware as well. Trust me, you want that. You're going to want, what else do they rip out? They took out the shell, so you want to install bash. And they removed a text editor, so I'm going to install nano, because we're going to need a text editor in a few. And they also removed man pages. So if you want to be able to learn more about a command, and you type in man plus the command, you're going to want to install mandb as well. These are things I think are pretty basic things that I'll keep my opinions to myself. Okay, we're just going to do the installation process here. Some of these things you don't need. I mean, you don't really need man pages if you know what you're doing, but it does help to have them. You can install Vim instead of nano, or vi, whatever you want. And of course you can install any shell you want. However, bash is pretty basic, so these are the things I've chosen. And of course you could choose a different version of the kernel, the LTS, the hardened, whatever. I'm going with the mainline kernel here. And so without further ado, just hit enter. Now I'm just going to hit enter for the default, and of course I'm going to hit Y. And this could take a while as well, but I'll stick around for this one. The change really isn't that hard to get around once you realize what's missing and what you want that's missing that they took out. And let's say you've done an Arch install before, it's not that hard. And I'll talk about my process on it, my thoughts on it another time. But for now, we're just going through the actual install process. But I will say that the first time I tried to install it the new way, I did screw it up multiple times, and I racked my brain trying to figure out what was wrong. And the problem was that I did not RTFM. It's very important that even if you're watching a guide like this, if you're watching a guide or if you got another guide that seems more clear to you, it's always important to compare notes with the official wiki. I cannot stress that enough. Looks like it's almost done, I hope. Okay, so now we got the base system installed, and now what we want to do is generate the fstab file, and this basically lets the computer know which partitions or drives it can boot from and what they're for. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to type in gen fstab dash capital U dash lowercase p and / mnt. And we're going to use the two carets here. Now make sure that you type in both of those greater than signs. Earlier you saw me type in one greater than sign when we were doing the mirror list, and I probably should have explained this there, but what I was doing there was I overwrote the entire file, so it wiped out the old one and it put the output of that command into the new one. Now what two greater than signs does, instead of overwriting the file or creating a new file, it appends whatever you're putting at the bottom of the file. So it doesn't wipe the file out, it just appends whatever you're doing to the bottom of it. Very important distinction there. And we're going to send that to /mnt /etc /fstab. And we'll hit enter. And we can check the file, make sure that it wrote correctly. And it did. And so I'm just going to hit clear. So now we're gonna enter into our newly base installed Arch system, and we're gonna just basically configure a few things and get it ready for the first boot up. And I might even install the graphical interface while I'm in there, just because it'd be easier next time I reboot it if I got everything set the way I want it. But anyway, the way you do that is you type in arch /chroot /mnt, we hit enter, and now we're in our installation. And so now the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to set up our locale. And what this is basically going to do is going to let the computer know where we are, make sure we get the right keyboard layout, and, blah 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 blah. I assume you know where you are. I assume you know what your locale is, but anyway, what we're going to do is type in nano. See, this is where the text editor is going to come in handy. This is why we need a text editor. So type in locale /nano /etc /locale.gen. We're hit enter, and you're going to see this file come up, and we're going to go down. And for me, it's going to be US English, EN for English, US.UTF or 8. This is the right one for me. And you could, if yours is up here somewhere, you could just uncomment it out, but what you want to do is the official way is to look through the list here and uncomment the one that's yours. However, I noticed that my particular locale was right up underneath the examples, and so Lazy Ben just uncomments this one because, see, all these hashtags, out of all the lines here, this is the only one it's gonna note, it's gonna recognize. To this, the rest of this file is basically blank. The rest of this is here for your sake, so you can understand what's going on here better. So once you uncomment your locale, type in Control, you hold down Control and press O to write it out. And so now we saved the file. And Control X to exit. So clear it again. Now what we want to do is type in, you want to make sure to set the locale, so we're going to type in locale /gen. We're going to generate the locale. As you can tell, it did it. Now to make sure that it's system-wide, we're going to type in echo lang en UTF/8, and we're going to make sure to put that in etc locale.conf. Now I type in export lang equals en and that'll make sure that it's system-wide, that we chose this locale. Now the next thing we want to do is select our time zone, and the way you're going to do that is we're going to create a symbolic link. However, the first thing I'm going to show you is the actual time zone. So you can type in ls/user/share and /zone info. By the way that I'm auto completing that is I'm just hitting tab as I go, and it'll just auto complete the directory for me. So for me, I'm in America, but if you want to see what else there is, you just hit enter there. And there are multiple time zones in America, so we can just enter there and find out which one we want. For me, I'm on the East Coast. My time zone is New York. So I'm going to type in ln/s to create the symbolic link, and this is where we're actually going to set it. So we're at USR share zone info, and for me it's America and New York, and we're going to put that in etc/etc local time, and we're going to set the hardware clock to UTC. Make sure that gets set. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the host name. This is the name of the computer that you want it to have. So for me, this is an HP laptop that's about to run Arch. So I'm just going to type in HP Arch PC. Simple enough. And we're going to hit greater than to create the file that we're looking for. and that's going to be etc host name. Okay, so now we got our host name. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our repositories, and we're going to make sure that we have 32-bit library support. The reason for this is because a lot of programs have 32-bit dependencies. I'm not talking about 32-bit CPUs. Those are pretty much obsolete. What we're going to do here is make sure that if a program needs a 32-bit library, there are a lot of 32-bit libraries that certain applications need. A big one is Steam. A lot of the games you play still require 32-bit libraries, so we're just going to make sure that we have access to that if we need it. So we're just going to hit nano /etc/pacman.conf, and we're going to find this file here. We're going to do a few things in here. One of the things I like to do is I like to uncomment the line where it says color. That's going to give some color to the output, the Pacman output. I'll make it do total download, and what that's going to do is when it's downloading, it's going to give you the percentage of the total instead of the percentage of that one package. I like it for it to be verbose. It's just going to give us a little more details to when we're installing stuff. And the one more thing I like to do here is I like to add a line, and you'll see what this does in a second. Type in I love candy, capital I, capital L, capital C, and I'll show you what that does when we get out of here. But the main reason that we came in here for is down here we have the list of our repositories down here, right? So you got testing, core, extra, community testing, and if you really want to like live on like the bleeding edge of a cliff, enable the testing repos. However, I'm not going to do that here. I do that on my main machine. However, I don't recommend that just anybody do that. The line we want to uncomment is this one here, the one that I just uncommented, the one that says multi-lib. It says here we want to uncomment both of these lines, and I'm just gonna go ahead and write it out. Control O, and then Control X to exit, and then we're gonna hit Pacman SY to refresh the database, and you're gonna see that, yeah, there is color here, and I'm just gonna do this right here so I can show you what the I love candy line does here. You see, instead of the hashtags, you see Pacman running across the screen eating a bunch of pellets. That's what I love candy does. And it's just a really cool thing that I like to do, just to liven things up a bit. Because not everything has to be, boring in Linux. You can make things fun. So anyway, the next thing we want to do is we want to set the password, our root password. And to do that, we're going to type in PASSWD. And right here you just set your password, which is definitely not Arch Linux. So now the root password has been changed. Now the next thing we want to do is create a user, a regular user. And the reason for this is that you don't want to be root all the time. That's one of the security things about Linux, is that you got the root and you got main users, and they can't access the root, or they can, but the different levels, I guess there's something there that makes it a little more secure. Anyway, I'm going to type in user add, just like that. Tac M to create a home folder for this new user. Type in tac G to add it to the group users. And we're going to add it to a few more groups by hitting tac capital G, and we're going to add it to the group wheel, the group storage, and we're going to add it to the group power. And now we're going to make sure that it gets a shell. We're going to do that with tac lowercase s, if only I could spell correctly. And bash. Now this user is going to have bash as its default shell. And then we give it its name. And now our user is created. And the next thing I want to do is change the password, or set the password for this new user. And so you're going to type in PASSWD, and then the username you just created. It's going to ask you to set the new password, which again is definitely not Arch Linux. And so now we have our new user created. And the next thing we want to do is make sure that the new user we created is going to have sudo privileges. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to uncomment a certain line in the sudoers file. And the way we access that is we type in editor to make sure that it's going to use nano, and then we type in vsudo. And now it opened up our sudoers file, and there's a certain line that we're looking for. It's this line right here where it says wheel all. Uncomment that. And we're not going to uncomment this because that'll make it so you don't have to enter your password, and we want it to ask us for a password. But this one here, this way any user that you put in the group wheel will be able to have sudo privileges. It will prompt you for a password. So we're going to uncomment that. We did that, so we're going to hit Control O to write it out, and then Control X to exit. So I'm just going to install bash completion, because that will help later on down the road. I just help you complete commands with the tab key. Just makes life a lot easier. Anyway, the next thing we want to do is type in mount T, because we're going to set up our boot partition now. Make sure that it becomes bootable. EF5R FS, and make sure that sys firmware EFI vars, and hopefully we get the right message here. It's going to say that it's already mounted. That's good. That's all you want. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install something called system deboot. Now, some people like to install grub, which, okay, I like grub. However, the simplest installation guide that I found for an EFI system installs system deboot, and it's just become a force of habit for me at this point, so that's what we're going to do. So the way we do that is we type in boot ctl install, and the good thing about this is that it comes with systemd, so we're not really installing anything new. It's just it's just going through, it's putting the right things in the right places. And so we're going to install it. And so now we have systemd boot has been installed, and we're going to type in, and now we have to create a file. It's going to be blank. We need, and it's in boot loader entries, and we type in arch.conf. And what this is basically going to do is going to tell the computer what to boot from, I guess. But we have to create it manually, and what we want to type in here is title arch Linux, and next line we type in Linux VM Linux dash Linux. And next line we type in init rd init ram fs linux.img. Make sure I type this in correctly because I got it wrong last time and got a boot issue. It's an easy fix, but I want to make sure I get it right so that you guys don't have a problem. I will. I saved the commands that I'm using in a text file that I will try to upload somewhere and make it shareable. I'll post a link to that in the description. So if on the off chance I do end up, misspelling something, I copied and pasted the commands into the text file. So the text file has the right spelling. So if on the off chance I am human, if I do misspell something, the correct spelling will be in the text file. So with that done, we're gonna hit Control O to write it, and then Control X to exit. Now we're gonna have to add another line to this file, but we're gonna do that in a slightly more automated way, just because it's a pain in the butt the manual way. So we're gonna do it this way. We're gonna type in echo double quote options root equals all capital letters here, part UUID, right, equals $. This is going to make it, and once I type in this command, I'm going to explain what it's doing here, and then I'll show you the results of it. Whoops, all capitals here, all value. And for me, you want to make sure to type in your root directory here, which for me is /dev/SDA2. You want to make sure you get that. Make sure you include the number for that one. Okay, so then you got parenthesis RW, and we want to append it. So 2 greater than signs /boot loader entries arch.conf. And now I'll explain what I just did there. You type in echo. Echo is going to repeat whatever is in these quotation marks, and it's gonna, and then because I hit the append command here, it's gonna take the output of this and put it at the bottom of this file here. And so I'll show you what I mean, what it just did here. I'm going to do that by going back into the file. As you can tell here, it put in options root, just like we put in the command, equals part UUID, and equals, but wait a minute, this is not what we typed after that, so why did it come out with that for us? Well, I'll show you why. everything that came after this $sign here, it executed this command here in the parentheses. And instead of echoing the plain text, it echoed the results of that command. Okay, and then after the parentheses you put RW for rewritable. And so this is just going to be raw text after the parenthesis. And quotation marks. And so that went into that file, and that's very important. It's very important that you have access to your root directory, which in this case is also the home partition as well. Sorry, directory partition. Anyway, next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the network manager. Pacman, capital S, network manager. And you see what this is what verbose did. When I uncommented that last line in Pacman, this is what it did. See how it changed the way the list of packages is. It gives a little more detail as to what's going on with it, what repository they're coming from and whatnot. And so I like to have a little more information, so I uncomment that one. I enable that. Anyway, so we got the network manager. This is going to ensure that we can connect to networks when we reboot the machine. Next few things I'm going to install, and you can easily do this at the next reboot. However, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we enable network manager. Whoops. Okay, and make sure to type in enable. It would help if I wasn't losing my mind, right? This is what Arch does to you. Welcome to the hair pulling world. Anyway, make sure you type it in correctly, the way I did it the second time. System CTL enable network manager, just the way I typed it, capital N, capital M, and it will enable that service for us next time we reboot. So the next thing I want to do is I want to install a few things. And I've decided to install the things that I need for a graphical interface. Just because certain things are a little bit easier to get done while I'm in here. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna go and install XF86 input synaptics, and this is important if you have a laptop. This gives the this will enable the trackpad or touchpad. So it's very important that you install that if you have a laptop. Install Mesa for 3D renderer. Install Xorg server, Xorg apps, Xorg Xnet, Xorg TWM, Xorg Xclock, and Xterm. And the next things I'm going to install is the actual desktop environment that I'm going to use, which is actually going to be the i3 telling window manager. So I'm just going to install i3 gaps, i3 status, i3 blocks. Am I missing anything? I need light DM for a display manager, light DM GTK greeter, And I like to install the LightDM GTK greeter settings. And I think that's it. Let's take one look at that, make sure I got everything that I need. Looks like I do. Hopefully I spelled everything correctly. And we're gonna go for it. Notice the colors makes the output that much easier to read. So I'm just going to let this go through. And what I'll do here is I'll let this install, and then I'm just going to unmount the drives and then I'll go into the fresh install on my other computer here and record a little bit of that just to show that the install was a success. So here we go. Installed everything, and so let me just think for a second just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, system CTL enable LightDM will enable the graphical display manager. So that way that LightDM will boot up automatically at the next reboot. You could do it, you could log in from a terminal, but I just think it's easier with LightDM. I wish I didn't need it, but unfortunately the computer I have, my main machine anyway, is has NVIDIA and console login starting Xorg with NVIDIA. It's just a mess. Don't deal with it. LightDM is the best option, I think, because it's just light, doesn't really take up that much space in it. And it works, it's easier to use. I can't really complain about it. But anyway, the next thing we want, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to end it here. I want to exit. So we exited the chroot, and we want to unmount everything. So we're going to type in umount, not unmount, umount for unmount. Umount, and we're going to type in capital R to make sure it unmounts everything recursively. /MNT. Now everything is unmounted, and I'm going to end it here because the next time I record a video is going to be on the other laptop in my fresh Arch install. Thank you and have a great day. Okay, so we are now in my freshly installed Arch system with i3. This is i3 out of the box. This is as vanilla as it gets. I did have to install a few things to get this working. Audio might not be that great because again, this is a fresh install of Arch and i3. It's pretty bare bones at this point. anyway, just booted into this and got into it to just show that it did in fact work. A couple of things I installed, of course, is OBS in order to record this. A couple of audio codecs in order to record this as well. But anyway, this is just to show that it did work. The installation process was a success. Don't worry about the black screen and the basic bar. This is what i3 is supposed to look like in a fresh install. So the Arch Wiki has plenty of instructions on how to install different desktop environments if i3 isn't your thing. But however, it does work, did work, and well, next time I come on, I'll show you how to get AUR access, easy AUR access by installing Yay. By then I may have configure this i3 setup to the way I like it. I might just give it my config files and get it working the way I want it. But that will involve installing a lot of packages. When I say Arch is bare bones, it is bare bones. But anyway, just so you can see here, it is working perfectly fine. I installed Termite. I installed Firefox, the web browser. I also installed the Qt browser, which I might get into that in a separate video. But I've been starting to like that one as well, that particular browser. Anyway, I can't think of anything else that I installed that was different. Alright, I did install MPV and VLC to be able to play back this video to make sure it recorded right. Other than that, it's pretty basic, pretty vanilla, as you can see. Don't even have a background yet. Anyway, I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments about this install, please be sure to like and subscribe if you like this channel, if you like my content. Leave any comments you have or any questions you may have. Thank you and have a great day.